Aren't you sick and tired of videos that are exaggerating exactly where the levels of foreclosures are? We are going to run through the actual and factual numbers in the Southern California Foreclosure Report. And just because we're not at record levels of foreclosures doesn't mean that there's not opportunity. We're going to go ahead and share those statistics and explain where the opportunity lies when it comes to scoring a deal on a foreclosure. Hey, I get it. I'd get more clicks and views if I had a thumbnail and content that showed that the entire world is falling apart for foreclosures right now. But the truth is, the facts, when we look at actual foreclosure data, and this is from ICE, which was formerly Black Knight, where they crunched these numbers, we are at record lows for delinquency levels. But you don't need everybody to be behind on their loan. If you're an investor looking to score a deal on a foreclosure, we're going to talk more about what you need to be doing. So what we can see in this report, this is the July report, we have a link below, but it's crunching May data. There's a few months behind that the delinquency rate fell to 3.04%. The only time it was lower was in March of 2023. You can see in this chart here that when we had the crazy days of the global financial crisis, we got over 10%, almost 11% of first loans were delinquent, and that's not counting second loans as well. Then we see this big spike here from COVID. Mortgage forbearance was set up, and that meant that people didn't have to make their payments and worry about being foreclosed on. Whether people needed to or not, a lot of folks went into forbearance. You can see down here, here's that record low where we are right now. So we are at crazy low levels for delinquent loans. Now let's dive into what it also shares. And what it's saying is newly 30-day late loans, that's actually dropped. So we're not getting more folks going into that. But those who are in later stages of delinquency, that continues to go up. That means they're not working it out. They're not making their loan current. So they are at risk of potential foreclosure if they don't sell. According to ICE, of the 410,000 properties that are 90 plus days late, 69% have some form of protection from foreclosure. There's some that are still in forbearance. Some are in loss mitigation, so they're working on potentially coming up with a plan to bring that loan current. And some are in bankruptcy, and those theoretically won't be foreclosed on, although occasionally during the crazy days, some would. So that means that there's still plenty of opportunity here. The properties with no protection, those in forbearance and those in loss mitigation, the owner could sell those properties if they have equity. Now those in bankruptcy, you have to go through a special process, bankruptcy court and overbid in most cases. So that's not active inventory that necessarily most investors should be going after. But all the rest, investors can approach those owners and attempt to buy the property. Diving into the data, starting with notices of default for June's 2024 all the way back to 2015, we're going to bolt on some more. The foreclosure process in California is non-judicial foreclosure, meaning it doesn't have to go in front of a judge. A borrower misses a payment, 120 days later, the notice of default can be filed. That would be the first public awareness that a property is in trouble. Then 90 days later will be the notice of trustee sale. Then 21 days later, the trustee sale itself. Starting with this first step in the foreclosure process, we can see there's an increase. In fact, in most counties, we're at higher levels than we've been since 2015 for notice of default. So that means there's an area of opportunity here for investors who are looking for properties where people are behind on payments. And we're at record levels for these. It doesn't mean they've kicked all the way out to being bank owned. This is the beginning. Now, here's what happens when we add in 2011, which was a busier time for notices of default. We could see that we're not at those levels, but we're definitely going up. And again, area of opportunity if you're an investor looking to purchase a property that's in the foreclosure process. Moving into the second phase in the non-judicial foreclosure process. Now, 90 days later, they can get the notice of trustee sale, and 21 days later, the sale can take place. So that notice of sale is going to have the sale date. Now, that's the fastest timeline. Typically takes much longer for a foreclosure to happen. And we can see that the numbers have continued to go up, but when we compare normal years, 2015 and 2019, we're still below those numbers. This dip here, 2020 and 2021, we had the forbearance programs, foreclosure moratorium, so there weren't as many going on, but still some properties kicking out into this next phase. Then we bring in 2011 and it's holy cow, big numbers. We can see in LA, for example, over 1,900 notice of trustee sale in 1 month. Nowhere near that level of delinquency in this current market, but still relevant levels of delinquencies if you're an investor who is looking to track foreclosures and buy. If you're digging this data, you're our kind of people. Before you make a move, make sure you reach out. REOs, the real estate owned, what does that mean? It went back to the bank. So you can see I've broken it down. Now 2020, 2021, these were foreclosure moratoria years, and we can see that properties have continued to flush out of forbearance, although not all of them. We've talked about that. Now we can see a slight increase in the number of properties in June that were foreclosed, unless you're in Ventura, because there were 0. So these are properties that make it all the way to the foreclosure sale, and these actually go back to the bank. They weren't purchased before getting to the auction. And additionally, these aren't properties that were purchased by an investor at the auction. So somebody's going to flip them, for example. These are ones that go back to the bank. They still are eligible for the SB 1079 process, which means that after the foreclosure sale, you can still buy these. And the people who can buy these would be a renter who lives in there. They have priority. And then if you're an owner occupant, you have priority. So there you go. You can see more traditional years, 2017, 18, 19, higher levels of foreclosures. And then 2015, as we were still unwinding well out of the global financial crisis, we still had properties kicking out as bank-owned properties. Now, don't forget that in any given market, there is going to be a certain level of foreclosures. Even when we had a foreclosure moratorium, we still had properties kicking out as foreclosures. And finally, for real perspective, looking at 2011, for example, LA, over 1,900 properties going back to the bank in 1 month. Huge numbers of foreclosures back then. And they didn't all go back to the bank. Don't forget we had short sales. So those properties weren't foreclosed on. And we also had investors buying third-party sales. So we didn't get everything going back, but we still had that level of inventory. Crazy, crazy number. So what are you gonna do as an investor? You're gonna go ahead and sign up for a foreclosure.com account. We have a link below so you can do that. We're actually gonna be talking to them about how to track down properties. We're gonna be doing an interview with foreclosure.com. Make sure you don't miss that. On foreclosure.com, you pay a monthly fee. It's an absolute steal for the monthly fee, especially if you're able to find a property that meets your needs. You can see right now properties in foreclosure, the pre-foreclosure process, 174,000 properties across the nation. And if you're worried about diving in and paying for that monthly fee, you can start out by getting a free preview. You can be sent in a specific zip code properties that end up going into the foreclosure process. It's worth at least doing that if you're not ready to spend the monthly fee, but it is worth every penny and more, especially if you can go ahead and track down a property before anybody else. So you don't miss out on any other Southern California foreclosure reports. Make sure you subscribe to this channel. We also have a free weekly email newsletter that'll keep you in the loop. The next video you need to watch is right here or here. Or here. Thanks for tuning in. This has been Christian Walsh, real estate agent with Wire Associates, and we can't wait to hear from you.